participate in this conference. And everybody is putting up their own demands.
You talked about the generality of Nigerians endorsing this idea of national conference, but the report we got from some states showed a clear contrary to this position. And one of such people was Governor Adams Oshiomhole, who voiced a stronger position against the idea of the national conference. Could you tell us, could you give us details about this?
Well, first of all, the mere fact that we did not get an endorsement from Governor Oshiomhole does not mean that we did not get an endorsement from the people of Edo State. That is the important thing about this conference. It's a conference of the people, by the people, and for the people of Nigeria. Yes, the governor of Edo State did not think much will come out of this conference. But he was talking of his own party position. His party had taken that position. So everybody in his party was obliged to take that position. But unfortunately for him, his party position, which he expressed, was in complete conflict with the position of his own people. His own people overwhelmingly endorsed this conference and came with their memoranda. All the ethnic nationalities within Edo State came endorsing the conference and telling us what they would like, what they would like as to modalities, as to what they think should be on the agenda, and so on. So it was this that prompted the governor to want to address them, because the governor did not expect to see the kind of response that he saw. But when he just dropped in and he heard his own people talking, he then felt he wanted to address them, perhaps to correct them and tell them they were wrong. But then, unfortunately, the people knew what they were talking. The people didn't want to listen to him.
Now, when we look at the Lagos states, for instance, now that's another state where we've had a strong reservation, going by the comments of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who has been very, very skeptical about the idea of a national conference in this regime.
Will Tinubu say that a year ago? Will he say that 2 years ago? Will he say that when he was funding PRONACO conference, PRONACO national conference, if he was one of those who funded it? Why was he funding those PRONACO conferences, pro-national conference, conference of ethnic nationalities? If he was already satisfied with Obasanjo's conference, why was he funding those? And in any case, I told you that governor of Edo State was only regurgitating a party position.
You've not answered the last question. What was wrong with the result of the last confab?
What was wrong with that was that it was not a conference of Nigerians by Nigerians for Nigerians. I will tell you why. The Obasanjo's conference, Obasanjo nominated all the delegates. He and the governors nominated all the delegates. Some were nominated by Obasanjo. Then he mandated the state governors to nominate others. Then he picked a few from the socio-cultural organizations like Afenifere, Ohaneze. Only one delegate was allowed Afenifere, and that was that delegate. One delegate was allowed Ohaneze. Apart from that, all the delegates were appointed by government. And there were no go areas. It was not everything we could talk about. A lot of things people want to talk about now, they could not talk about it. They could not talk about those issues during Obasanjo's conference. People were gagged. So it was not a conference of the people.
Now, let's just weigh why the opposition party are clamoring against this national conference, in spite of the fact that most of them have been ardent supporters of this idea in the past. Now, permit me to play the devil's advocate now. Could there be an ambush in terms of the sincerity of this national conference?
If we have been fighting for this national conference for more than 2 decades, many presidents have been there who refused to convene it. We agitated before them, they refused. Now we finally have a president who has consented that now we can have a national conference. You don't reject an opportunity to take something you have been looking for more than 2 decades, just because you think the man may have some other motive. You grab it, whatever his motive may be. As long as what he's offering you is in your own interest, you grab it.
Now, are we not merely begging the question now? Because when we look at the Constitution, the provisions of the Constitution, it stipulates that the National Assembly is the voice of the people. Now, when we look at also the issue of the National Conference, it may end up playing a dual role to the function of the National Assembly.
If you want me to go into detail, for part of the grievances of people is that the present constitution we have is unfair to some sections of the country. That even the parameters for creating constituencies, for creating local government, for electing people into the National Assembly, this case was skewed deliberately by some past rulers to favor sections of the country and put some other sections at a disadvantage. And that no matter what, nothing can pass through the National Assembly unless those sections want it to pass. So if you feel a constitution has been rigged against you, how can you then expect that constitution to correct those problems? So the sovereignty that the National Assembly enjoys is a delegated sovereignty. And he who delegates can withdraw that delegation. If the people delegate authority to the National Assembly and they feel the National Assembly is not able to take care of their interests, they can withdraw that sovereignty and take it to themselves. It belongs to them.
Senator Femi Okoromo, it's been a wonderful moment having you on this edition of Network Africa, in spite of your very busy schedule going around the country to convince Nigerians on the importance of the issue of the national dialogue. Thank you very much indeed.
Well, if you support the idea of national dialogue, you may send your comments to networkafrica@channelstv.com. And here's your Twitter handle on your screen. Now, recently, parliamentarians from all over Africa for the first time gathered for the All-African Legislative Summit in Abuja with the theme Emerging Legislature in Africa, the Challenges and Opportunities. Some major issues bordering on strengthening parliamentary democracies came up, which include the process of domesticating and ratifying international treaty. Now, Nigeria's former number 2 man, Atiku Abubakar, also challenged African parliamentarians to be proactive in adopting bills for the nation.
The oversight function of the legislature is another avenue for parties to ensure that their vision of society, as expressed in legislation, is adhered to. In presidential systems, the autonomy of the three arms of government is deemed important for checks and balances and accountability. In parliamentary systems, where the members of the cabinet are also members of the legislature, legislative autonomy assumes a different form. In that system, the parliament is supreme. The autonomy of the different arms to carry out their functions is essential because they have specific functions assigned to them by the Constitution.
Because of the nature of international law itself, because of the values, the politicization of treaties, and because most of the international agreements we are talking about are generally initiated by the powerful countries, the developed countries, not taking into account the interests of Africa. The belief was that under normal circumstances, the National Assembly should be in a position to first of all, a priori, examine, have a prima facie consideration of the agreement before going to signing, to paraffing agreements internationally.
Well, we hope words will be matched with actions as regards our parliamentarians. And this is as much as we can take in this edition of Network Africa. I'm Benga Ashir.
A time comes in the life of every race when people are driven by echoes of the past to chart a course for an exalted future. Africa is a blessed threshold. As major actors in the Africa arena plots a renaissance towards common destiny, let's pedal across the streams of yesterday, through the backstreets of Africa, to the defining roles of policymakers, the political realities of the African nation, balance of power, and the strive to sustain national interest and identity. Join us on Network Africa on Channels Television. Network Africa, the rallying point for the emergence of a new Africa.